You're about to step inside one of America's most haunted houses, where 8 people were slaughtered in their sleep and the killer simply vanished. Stick around because this story has twists that will make your skin crawl, and evidence that still baffles investigators is over a century later. Picture this. It's 1912 in Villisca, Iowa. Population 2,039. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone and doors stay unlocked. The town sits in rolling farmland, connected to the world by the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad. One local travel guide called it one of the finest towns in the state. But here's the creepy part. The town's name, Villisca, was thought to mean pretty place. Turns out historians now believe it was confused with Willisca, which actually means evil place. Funny how that worked out. On June 9, 1912, the Moore family seemed to have it all. Josiah Moore, age 43, ran a successful farm equipment business. His wife, Sarah, 39, was beloved in the community. Their 4 kids were Herman, Mary, Arthur, and Paul. That Sunday evening, they attended a special Children's Day program at the Presbyterian Church. Mary invited 2 friends, sisters Lena and Ina Stillinger, ages 12 and 8, to sleep over. The service ended around 9:30 p.m. The family walked home with the girls. They had no idea they had less than 3 hours to live. Nobody saw the shadow following them home. When the sun came up on Monday, June 10th, something was very wrong at 508 East 2nd Street. Mary Peckham, the next-door neighbor, noticed an eerie stillness. No smoke from the chimney, no morning chores. The chickens hadn't been fed. By 8 a.m., she called Ross Moore, Josiah's brother. "Something's not right," she told him. Ross arrived with skeleton keys. He stepped into the downstairs guest bedroom and instantly backed out. The Stillinger girls lay in their bed, skulls crushed beyond recognition. Blood soaked everything. Ross ran to get the town marshal. Together they went upstairs and found Josiah, Sarah, and all 4 children. 8 victims, all struck repeatedly with an axe. All had cloth covering their faces. All had bed sheets pulled over their heads. The killer had shown a strange, twisted ritual, but the crime scene held even stranger details. A plate of uneaten food sat on the kitchen table. Slabs of raw bacon lay scattered on the floor. The axe, still covered in blood and hair, leaned against the wall. It came from the Moore's own coal shed. Every mirror had been covered with clothing. Windows were blocked with curtains so no one could see inside. In the attic, investigators found cigarette butts. The killer had waited up there, smoking and watching, until everyone fell asleep. The most haunting detail? Josiah Moore's face had been struck so many times his eyes were completely gone. The ceiling showed gouge marks from the upswing of the axe. Doctors estimated the murders happened between midnight and 5 a.m. The killer locked the door with the house key when he left. Half the town showed up before police could secure the scene, destroying evidence by walking through and touching everything. Investigators had suspects. The problem was proving anything. First up, Reverend George Kelly. This traveling minister was in town that very night teaching at the Children's Day service. Kelly was described as peculiar. He'd suffered a mental breakdown and had been accused of peeping through windows. Here's where it gets wild. Kelly left town between 5 and 5:50 a.m. the next morning, right when the killer would have finished. He later confessed, claiming he heard God's voice tell him to follow a shadow to the Moore house. But when he was tried 5 years later, the jury didn't buy it. 2 trials, 2 acquittals. Kelly walked free. Then there's Frank Jones, an Iowa state senator. Josiah Moore used to work in Jones's hardware store. 5 years before the murders, Moore left and became a competitor, taking a lucrative John Deere contract. Jones reportedly held a serious grudge. Many locals believe Jones hired William Mansfield to kill the family, but Mansfield had payroll records proving he was in Illinois that night. Or was he? A restaurant owner claimed he saw Mansfield boarding a train the morning after the murders, saying he'd walked from Villisca. If true, that destroys his alibi. No charges were ever filed. Here's the terrifying possibility. Between 1911 and 19, nearly identical axe murders swept through the Midwest. Families killed in their sleep, windows covered, mirrors hidden, cigarette butts left behind. Some investigators believe a serial killer, possibly responsible for 24 deaths, was riding the rails from town to town. In 2017, a journalist theorized the killer might have been Paul Muller, a German immigrant drifter. But without evidence, it's just another theory. Somebody murdered 8 people in cold blood and got away with it. Let's talk about what people experience. We're not talking about 1 or 2 random claims. We're talking consistent encounters reported by hundreds of visitors over decades. Children's laughter echoes through empty rooms. Doors open and close by themselves. Objects move across rooms. People report being physically touched, scratched, and pushed by invisible hands. One woman had visible scratches appear on her back during a tour. But here's the detail that gives everyone chills. Around 2 a.m. every night, a train passes through Villisca. The whistle blows, and that's when paranormal activity spikes. People report overwhelming dread, hearing footsteps, and sensing presences. Many believe the train whistle triggers residual energy from the night of the murders. The attic is particularly active. Remember, that's where the killer waited. Investigators who spend time there report feeling watched, hearing whispers, and experiencing sudden temperature drops. Some claim to have communicated with spirits using electronic devices. They've captured voices saying names of victims. One team recorded what sounded like a child saying Ina, one of the Stillinger girls. In 2014, something truly disturbing happened. A 37-year-old paranormal investigator was staying in the downstairs bedroom where the Stillinger sisters died. He brought a hunting knife despite being warned not to. After trying to provoke the spirits, he reported seeing a flash of light. The next thing he knew, he woke up in a hospital. He'd stabbed himself in the chest and had no memory of doing it. He later returned to apologize. Whatever is in that house doesn't always play nice. Tour guides have their own experiences. One reported a toy car that moved across a stove on its own during a tour. Another heard footsteps on the second floor while alone downstairs. Martha Lynn won't discuss her personal experiences, but she did say she feels like there's something there. The most common theory? The spirits of the children remain, still traumatized. Some believe the killer's spirit is also there. Whatever the truth, the Villisca Axe Murder House is not like other crime scenes. This place has a presence. Here's what really haunts people about Villisca. It's not just the brutality, it's the randomness. The Moore family did nothing wrong. They went to church. They let their daughter's friends sleep over. They went to bed. And someone destroyed them for reasons we'll never understand. That's the nightmare. It could have been anyone. It could have been anywhere. The investigation was botched from the start. Contaminated crime scene. Conflicting testimonies. Suspects with weak alibis never properly investigated. By the time the case went cold, careers were ruined. The town of Villisca was forever marked as the place where evil visited and left no answers. Modern investigators point to the likelihood of a serial killer. The pattern of similar murders across multiple states is too consistent to ignore. Someone was riding the railways, selecting isolated families, and killing them using the same methods. Covering mirrors and windows, using the family's own tools, leaving just before dawn. If this theory is correct, the Villisca murders weren't personal. The Moores simply crossed paths with a monster. But what if it was personal? What if Frank Jones really did hire someone to kill his business rival? The evidence may have been weak, but the motive was strong. Jones's career was destroyed by the accusations. He went from powerful state senator to social pariah. The truth died with everyone involved. Over 110 years later, the Villisca Axe Murder House still stands on that quiet street in Iowa. It looks like any other old farmhouse in the daylight. But when the sun goes down and you're inside those walls, something changes. The air feels heavier. The shadows seem darker. And then you hear it. A creak on the stairs. A giggle from an empty room. The sensation of being watched. The house operates as both a historical site and a paranormal destination. School groups tour during the day to learn about the tragedy. Ghost hunters book overnight stays hoping to capture evidence of the afterlife. True crime enthusiasts make pilgrimages to stand where one of America's most notorious unsolved murders occurred. Everyone takes something different away, but no one leaves unaffected. Martha Lynn, now in her 80s, has spent over 30 years as guardian of this dark piece of history. She's filled notebooks with accounts from overnight guests. Some claim to feel protective presences, as if the Moore parents are still watching over their children. Others report malevolent encounters and overwhelming fear that forces them to leave before dawn. Most don't make it through the entire night. The question everyone asks is this: should we be spending the night in a place where children were murdered? Are we disrespecting the dead or honoring their memory by ensuring they're never forgotten? What we know is that the 8 victims deserve to have their story told. Josiah and Sarah Moore, Herman, Mary, Arthur, and Paul Moore, Lena and Eno Stillinger. They were real people with real lives cut horrifically short. Their killer escaped justice, but their memory refuses to die. And if the reports are true, neither do their spirits. The house on 508 East 2nd Street holds secrets we may never fully understand. It stands as a reminder that sometimes evil wins, sometimes the monster gets away, and sometimes the dead don't rest easy. That's the real horror of Villisca. Not just what happened, but that we'll never know why, and neither will they. Image generations.